Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the garden. Today, we have got a solo podcast that I am very excited about. I was just digging back into the catalog, and it's been quite a while since we did this. I think the last one was released in mid to late March, and currently it is mid-July. So about 4 months worth of stuff to catch up on, and it's been really fun doing these solo episodes. I mention it pretty much every time that it is a little bit weird to be in a studio all by yourself with a couple cameras and microphones all pointing at you and talking to literally yourself. But in a weird way, I really do enjoy these kind of like online digital diaries, and messing with the format of these has been a lot of fun. We've done a couple that have been Q&A episodes where I'll post something on social media, get some kind of like audience feedback and questions that way. That's always a good mix of listeners and family and friends. We've done a couple that have been kind of like almost like time capsule episodes where I'll take a couple of months or years even sometimes and break out a couple of lessons and insights and takeaways that I've had from there. And today we're doing a brand new format. I was really excited about this solo podcast, and as I was thinking of all of the things that have changed in the last 4 months, I thought that that is something that we can probably cover at some point, but I had an idea as I was driving with my mom 30 hours from Boise, Idaho to Austin, Texas, and was like, wow, it'd be really cool if we did a Q&A episode, but it was just family members. As a podcast nerd myself, I really enjoy solo episodes, and some of the guys that I listen to really do a good job of like showing the takeaways that they have and some of the lessons that they learn in life, but also using it as a format to kind of show a little bit more about who they are and add a little bit of insight. So that's my goal with this podcast today. I reached out to my immediate family members. So we've got my mom, my dad, my little brother, and both of my grandmas who submitted questions today. And I'm really excited for this format. One of the biggest benefits of this podcast is that it allows me to stay connected to people that I don't always have the time to be physically in a room with, and spurs a lot of really great conversations when I do get to see them in person, because a lot of times they're kind of caught up on some of the conversations I've been having or things that I've been thinking about, or they'll listen to a solo episode and have some pretty pointed ideas of what I've been up to lately. So I think that that's been really cool. And this seems like a really good way to kind of have like a time capsule episode, and also just kind of talk directly to some of my family members who I don't get to see all the time. For those of you who know me, this is going to be 10 years here soon of not living in the same city as my family. And at the beginning, I definitely was ready for that, and I was very much looking forward to it. However, being 27 now and really figuring out what means a lot to me and kind of trying to narrow in what matters to me, family time is really, really important in that. So this feels really good to me as a way to kind of reach back out to my family and have some conversations with them that I would like to have if I had the chance to be in person. So really excited about this. I think we can jump right into it. And we've got a couple of updates on some different things that we'll save for the end of the podcast for those of you who choose to listen. Alrighty. So number one, we're just going to go by family member here. And my mom was the first one to submit her question, so she's going to get started. What is the most reused or valuable advice that I have ever given you? My mom gives me a lot of really great advice, and a lot of it is in the form of analogy or story or kind of just like this bite-sized information, which brings me to my favorite piece of advice that she gives me. And the piece of advice is you can only eat an elephant one bite at a time. And I remember like standing in her office the first time that she told me that and just kind of like letting my jaw drop a little bit. And I'm somebody who is constantly thinking into the future and is constantly projecting all of the million different ways that something can go. And a lot of times that projecting also comes with a really long to-do list of all of the things that need to happen to like make the desired outcome come true. And that's overwhelming sometimes. And for me, it's difficult to be patient, and it's difficult to know that there's a lot of things to do without having the ability to do them. And that has been a common theme for me, whether it's been a long homework list or trying to get recruited or, you name your thing in business or whatever. And my mom she hit me with that piece of advice, and it has been very helpful for me over and over and over again when I think about all of the long list of things that I need to do. It's just like, you can only eat an elephant one bite at a time. And this is probably my most parroted advice from my mom as well, because when people come to me and they're feeling overwhelmed or stressed, I think a lot of times what they don't want to hear is a logical solution. A lot of times it's like, dude, yeah, I know that there's a million things that I could do about this, but I kind of just need you to sit in this with me and like let me be emotional about the fact that there's so much to do right now, or that there's such a big problem to solve. And just tell me that, like, yeah, it sucks. And I've been trying to do a lot better job of that, because my analytical brain goes straight to, well, if we just do this, this, and this, then it'll cross those off the list, and then we can reapply that energy to these things. And I like watch people's eyes glaze over when I try to give that kind of advice. So this one has been a very good catch-all for me, kind of, and it's been useful for myself too, where I can just look at somebody and say, like, you can only eat an elephant one bite at a time. Yes, let's sit in this right now, that it's stressful and overwhelming and difficult and all of the things. And let's acknowledge the fact that we can't solve it all right now by talking about it. Or even if we got up right now and pulled ourselves up by our bootstraps, we can't do everything about it to like solve this problem. So, Mom, I'm curious if this is the one that you would have guessed, but yeah, you can't eat or you can only eat an elephant one bite at a time is certainly my most reused and probably valuable in most circumstances advice that you've given me. The next one, what is one trait that you most emulate or hope to emulate from your papa? My papa is my grandfather on my mom's side, Ken Snow, and he is really one of the best examples of what a good man has been to me for my whole life. So very good question and lots to emulate. I would say that his stoicism and his inability to be shaken are the two things that I want to emulate the most. My grandpa just had the most even keel, happy, calm disposition of all time. And there'd be, you could come to him with like the biggest problem in the world, and he'd just sit there and go, well, Drew. And then any advice that came after that was usually some version of, you can only eat an elephant one bite at a time. It's like, yeah, life's crazy and seems like you've gotten yourself into it this time, but there was never any judgment. It wasn't angry. It wasn't panicked. It was just like, well, I guess this is a new problem, isn't it? And I really respect that about him. It's something that I, as a leader, would like to be able to uphold. I would like to be, for people to come to me and know that I'm not going to get angry, that I'm not going to judge them, and that the problem that there is to be solved is what we're going to focus on, and that there won't be necessarily any judgment or anything like that for the fact that we have to solve it in the first place. So I think that his ability to be so stoic and so unshaken was just such a helpful thing for everybody around him. And it really made you feel like at home and safe coming to talk to him about anything. So that would be really cool. I would also say too, though, that like he had the most like great laugh and great smile of all time, but he also, just like he didn't have super low lows, he also, I can't remember very many times where I saw him just like knee slapping, elated, and like belly laughing about stuff either. So, yeah, maybe I hope to emulate the stoicism that he had, and also couple that with the ability to like really allow myself to find joy and show people that side. All right, next thing. What did you have to learn on your own that you wish me and your stepdad, Steve, would have taught you when you were younger? I would say investing, as cliche or corny as that might sound. I definitely took my fair hack at it during college and learned a lot, but lost a decent amount of money in the meantime. It's funny that my best investments have been the ones that I just literally bought and forgot and have left them for a couple of years, because my happy ass thought that day trading was going to be how I made my millions, and it turned out not to be the case. However, I do like that both of you were very willing to like let me explore that and go down it and learn a ton. And, you know, me and Steve always had a lot of like fun times talking back and forth about stock picks and stuff like that. But I do think that it would have been helpful to have a little bit of guardrails from people who have spent so long in corporate and dealing with things like 401ks and IRAs and individual stock accounts and that sort of stuff. Because while I was having fun and learning a ton, I think that having I would say maybe some guardrails or even just like some accountability and encouragement to continue with the exploration, but also have a little bit more solid of a foundation would have been really helpful. I think that I want to teach my kids about personal finance and about how to invest and set themselves up for success early. But I also want to hold them accountable to it, whether it's, an automatic withdrawal into a brokerage account or whatever the thing is. And I think that that's something that would have been helpful is you guys just like reminding me, of how important it is to continue investing, even when you start a business and have very variable finances. But also showing me, some of the other kind of like basics and just having me stick to them. So a little corny, but you guys have done a really great job with that. And I think I would like to continue to learn from you guys of how to do that. Alrighty, the next one. If you could have been guaranteed a high-profile football career similar to what you had envisioned, but it meant that you didn't make the friends that you did at Rocky, would you have done it? For context of everybody who doesn't know what Rocky Mountain College is, because most people don't, my goal in high school was I wanted to go play football somewhere in California where I could play football during the day and then surf when I wasn't playing. Now, I don't know how to surf, but that was my my vision nonetheless. And I was really bummed out when I first got to Rocky. My freshman year, I had a couple of roommates who weren't super stoked to be there. I wasn't super stoked to be there. We were all in the mindset that we could have played bigger football, and we had girlfriends that didn't live in town. So like between thinking Billings was stupid and thinking playing NAIA football was stupid and being away from our girlfriends was stupid, we just spent a lot of time being negative about where we were at instead of looking at the positives and like making the best of the situation that we were in. And so this question about like, would I have taken a high profile football career in exchange for the friends that I had? I think that mindset is honestly what made me so miserable my freshman year, because really like when it comes down to it, it's like, Saturdays are fun and it could have been cool to have, play in front of bigger crowds and have better traditions and have bigger rivalries and more eyeballs on us and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, we probably also avoided a lot of problems and headaches and just annoying shit that kind of comes with that. And I spent an entire year just being miserable thinking about how cool my life could be if I was playing at a bigger school. And it wasn't until my sophomore year where I like didn't have those same distractions. I wasn't super excited about being somewhere besides Billings. And I just kind of like let myself be here. That was the most fun of my entire football career. And so I think that I would not trade having a high profile career for the friends and the memories that I made at Rocky, because I think that regardless of where you're at, you kind of just have to like settle in and decide that you're going to have a good time. Because objectively, it might be easier to have fun playing at UCLA or at Michigan or at Ohio State or UT, because there's more to do in the cities and there's more exciting stuff and like all of the things. But if you're there and you're also thinking about, well, what if it was cooler to play at Ohio State? Or what if I'm at UCLA, but what's it like at USC? I think that regardless of how big the platform you're on is, if you can't like enjoy where you're at and make the big time where you're at, I just don't think that you can be happy regardless of how high profile the thing is. So with that being said, fuck it, go Bears. I would not take back my time at Rocky. I would maybe take back some of the relationships that I had with coaches and stuff like that. But overall, I think deciding to enjoy it there and making the best of it was one of the best decisions I ever made. So going to try and continue with that line of logic. Last one from Mom. If you were guaranteed to be good at an Olympic event, what would you choose and why? She says hers would be something like gymnastics or diving because she can't get her mind and body connection to work like that, and wonder what it would feel like to be able to do all of those things. I feel that for sure. I am very proud of my ability to backflip. For whatever reason, front flipping is way harder for me. But outside of that, like all of my buddies who can do crazy shit on snowboards and off of cliffs and all that kind of stuff, I have just never understood it. So I do agree that would be cool. However, I think that being good at like a 100-meter dash or like a 200-meter dash would be just the coolest of all time. I think that having the feeling of being able to just like feel what running that fast would be like in a funny way would be really cool. And speed also unlocks like literally everything in sports. So would probably be good to translate for all of that. But yeah, I think sprints would be really fun. And also like I don't want to say it's not hard because it's definitely hard. I think sprinting is probably one of the most difficult things, but it's not like wrestling where you're cutting weight and you're miserable at the Olympic Village and you're doing all that stuff. Like, I feel like sprinting would be a pretty cool one just overall. So would love to be Usain Bolt fast and feel what it's like to, to run like that. Alrighty. We're actually going to mix up this order a little bit. I had my dad going next, but I'm having my little brother going next because he's hilarious. A little bit of a palate cleanser. We're so back. Tanner says, how does it feel being a closeted gay every time you crack open an Alani? And to that, I say, cheers, dude. My brother's just the sweetest blue collar boy of all time. And for whatever reason, I think that they can only get out of bed in the morning and look at themselves in the mirror if they're drinking a C4 or a Full Throttle or something that doesn't have snow cones and bows and strawberries on it. But you know what? I'm just not that guy. So big fan of Alani's. I am trying to cut back on caffeine right now because I was cranking a bunch of them and just being the weirdest combination of tired and anxious of all time. So that being said, shut up, dude. I'm going to keep drinking Alani's and you can stick to whatever you're sticking to. Next question from him was, what was your turning point and lock-in chapter when you realized that this is what I'm doing with my life? I do like how open-ended this question was because it really helped me. It really forced me to think about like, okay, which lock-in chapter, this is what I'm doing with my life. And I've had a handful of them. I've had some with the podcast where I decided to go big on this thing. I've had some with business, and I kind of didn't know which one to pick. But what I realized is I feel like I had a pretty big shift when I went from the thought that I could always dream of being a business owner, but couldn't actually be one, to the time where I just said, screw it, and jumped off the cliff. So I'm going to focus on that one. I would say that the turning point was I was working at a marketing agency. And for those of you who've heard this story, I apologize, but hopefully there will be some new details. I was working in a marketing agency that I was very blessed to be a part of for about a year and a half. And at this point, it went from me and the guy who owned it, who was a serial entrepreneur and a great person to learn from. We added a handful of employees while I was there. We added a couple of new clients that were really fun. And I was in a position where I was on salary and I had this undefined bonus that was essentially written into my contract where I was like, hey, I'll take a lower salary, but I would like to use that cash flow like in the business. And I hope that if we expand and we do well, that I could share in some of the growth of the business. And so up until about this year and a half point, I had gotten quite a bit better at the things that I was doing. I was an account lead on one of our clients who had headquarters in Boston and in Paris. And I was traveling around doing support for them and helping out with some other clients, and like felt like I was doing a pretty good job. And up until this point, I hadn't ever received a bonus for the growth that we had had. So I talked to the guy that I was working with and just mentioned it. And he was like, well, dude, I understand that you have an essentially 2-hour commute every day, but you get here at 8:30 and you leave at 4:30 or 5:30 or whatever it was. And he was like, and that's it. So he's like, if you want to work like an employee, then you're going to get paid like an employee. I'm here at 4:30 in the morning and I leave whenever the work is done. Sometimes it's 6, sometimes it's 7, sometimes it's 4. But that was just kind of, he was like, if you want to get paid like a partner, you have to act like one. So for an entire summer, I got up a little extra early. I stopped training at the Grindhouse in the evening so that I could stay at the office longer. And I was lifting at like 4:45 in the morning and was literally just burning the candle at both ends. And pretty much every day I was coming home just super spent and tired. I would get home and I'd pass out, then like scrap together some dinner and then pretty much go right back to bed. My social life was struggling. My training was struggling. I was like just kind of feeling like I was falling apart a bit. And at the end of that summer, I ended up getting called to go to a trade show in Paris where the client that I was a lead on was doing a trade show at the Louvre. So I went for marketing and sales support and ended up tagging like an extra 12 days on the back of that trip because I had some family friends in Germany and then one of my best friends from college playing football in Switzerland. So I was like, great, I'll spend 6 days in Paris, knock out this trade show, and then go see those two people and kind of make like a little 3-week thing out of it. What ended up happening was the trade show was super busy, but then once I got to Germany, I had all of this work that I needed to do because technically I was still like working remote after this trade show was over. And what I wanted to be doing was checking out the vineyards and the coffee shops and exploring and spending my days doing fun stuff. And what I found was if I went to a coffee shop and I just like super locked in for 2 hours, 3 hours, I could get done like 80 to 90% of the stuff that I was spending 10, 11 hours at the office, like proving that I wanted to work like a partner that entire summer prior. And so that was a big unlock for me where I was like, oh, if I'm just super focused, it doesn't matter how much time I put into something. Like it's all about output. And so I kept with that work rate for the next 2 weeks and got tons of stuff done, was able to go have some really great time with some family friends, spend some really fun time in Switzerland, and came back just being like, whoa. And I remember for the next like 2 or 3 weeks as I was driving back and forth from Red Lodge, which is about an hour away from where I was living at the time, I just remember like, I was like, man, every week I spend 10 hours driving back and forth, like 2 hours a day. And that's about how long it took me to get like 80% of the stuff that I needed to get done. And I could just fuck off for the rest of the day. And so it really started eating in the back of my mind. I was like, okay, well, what could I be doing even with these 10 hours if I were to just work remote? So then I kind of started working remote a little bit more. My boss was very gracious with me for that. And then I started thinking about like, okay, well, with this extra time, what if I took a couple extra clients and what, just kind of started working down that road of what would this actually look like if I was applying my energy to my own thing and had all this time to do it? So what ended up happening is I took a couple of clients on the side. I was working mostly remote. I'd go up to Red Lodge more like 1 or 2 days a week instead of 4 or 5. And I remember having a one-on-one meeting towards the end of this kind of season. I think it was about the fall at this point, and sat down and asked again. I was like, all right, man, well, it's been about a quarter and what are we thinking? I put a lot of time in this summer and I feel like I really earned it and tried to do my thing. And my undefined bonus was 0 again. And I think that was kind of the turning point for me. And at that point, I looked at myself and I was like, okay, well, if this is where I'm going to cap out at here, then I need to figure something else out. Not because I didn't enjoy it, but because I just had bigger goals at the time that I just wasn't on track to be able to achieve there. And so I remember having the like internal battle where I was like, okay, I think if I can make about $4,000 a month top line revenue, I will not have that big of a like shift in my lifestyle. Cause I think I was making like 50K a year or something like that, right out of college. And so I was like, it's about what I'm making right now. My lifestyle isn't going to change that much. My rent was like $350 at the time. So I was like, I think if I can just make $4,000, like we're fine. So I took a couple clients, hit that $4,000 number. And that was kind of the turning point for me. I was like, okay, well, if I can support myself doing this stuff, taking less hours and not having the limiting, like really like not having the limiting ceiling of you have to be here for this amount of time. And like, I'm the one who can decide how much money you make for it. I think that was a big unlock for me. And there were a lot of other variables that came into play than money. But for me, it was like the big question was about survival, and money just happened to be the thing that was tied to that. So as soon as I figured out that like, hey man, I can support myself and make a go at this thing and not be broke or homeless, that was kind of the big unlock that made me be like, okay, I don't think I'm ever going to go back to working for somebody else again. And it's 4.5 years later and I still haven't. I've got a lot of friends who are 30 plus years in business. So not to say that 4.5 is anything too super crazy, but it is to the point now where like, even the thought of taking a job or working for somebody else seems very foreign to me. And it seems like it would be like a really big shift for me to go back to something like that. So it was very uncomfortable at the beginning. Is a lot more comfortable now. But the thing about going off on your own is you very quickly come to terms with the fact that at any point it could all go to zero. And I think that's kind of what forced the, like lock-in, if you will, was just purely out of survival. It's like, okay, I'm on my own now. And if I screw this up, it's all on me. And like, things might get ugly. So a little bit longer of an answer there, but I think that is the turning point, was just being like, yeah, dude, I am the only one that can control my destiny here. I can take back some of my time and be more efficient with it. And I can survive. So that was kind of the thing. Okay, next thing. What is one thing you'd change about our childhood and upbringing together between you and I, not with the parents or the family? Ooh, yeah, this one hit me, dude. I've been talking about this one a lot lately. Yeah, me and my little brother, we grew up butting heads a lot. And I think that a lot of it was because we just had very different personalities. I was very type A and by the book and wanted to follow the rules and, be good at all the things and at school and whatever. And Tanner has always just been this like free soul, jump off the top of the stairs, like fuck around, like just the most fun kid of all time. And I think that inherently we just kind of butt heads from that. And then also as we continued to grow up, our interests kind of started like continued to grow further apart, where I was in sports in school. He was more into like, being a mechanic and action sports and that side of things. And we just kind of like continually kind of grew in different directions, but always had this like kind of like main thread of being there for each other because of some of the circumstances that we were in. The thing that I would change, dude, is like, I just wish I would have been nicer to you, man. And it gets me pretty heavy when I get to thinking about it, because I think in a lot of ways I felt like I didn't really have anybody, and I wish that I would have done a better job of that not being your reality also. I think that, I was only a couple years older, but I think I was a little bit older where I could have provided you direction. I think I could have protected you a little bit better and shown up for you better at school, even though you were being a little shit and it was hard for, me to stick my neck out sometimes and stuff like that. But like, man, I know you're not much of a fight fan, but there's this interview that Nate Diaz did with some dude, and he was like, talking about bullying or whatever. And this interview asked him, he's like, hey man, well, like, did you ever get bullied in school? And this is one of the baddest men on the planet. And he didn't say, nah, I was tough or this and that. He goes, nah, man, I had a big brother. His big brother also happens to be one of the best fighters on the planet. But I just don't really know if that was your reality, man. I feel like I could have given that to you a lot better. And I'm really glad that we're in a point now where I feel like, dude, like being friends with you is one of the coolest things ever. I say it all the time now that like coming back home is, I'm like most excited to see my brother when I'm coming back, and I had a chance to obviously live with him for a month in June and do all that kind of stuff. And I think that our differences like really got in the way for me. And I was just like, didn't handle it very well when we were growing up. And, I think instead of like letting those differences get in the way and trying to like butt heads with you and argue about whose way was better or who was right or who was doing the right thing or the wrong thing or whatever, like, I think that why our relationship is so good now is because both of us are like, hey dude, I'm really good at this and I'm super into these things and you're super into those things and super good at that. Even though those have no intermixing for the most part whatsoever, like they complement each other, they supplement each other. And I just wish that I would have been better about seeing that when we were young. And yeah, dude, just being nicer to you. I think that I could have been a lot better big brother and a lot better leader growing up. And I hope that the 18 years at the beginning of our lives is much outweighed by the hopefully 60 plus of the rest of it. So Absolutely honored to be your brother, man. I think that you're one of the most genuine and really just like authentic people I've ever met. And so I'm really looking forward to being a better big brother and a better friend to you for the rest of our lives, dude. But yeah, that's the one. And then he also finished by saying, what is one thing you feel like you've missed out on? This one was so interesting to me because I feel like it also comes up like all the time. And I really feel like I missed out on the hangs with you and Papa in the garage. My little brother and I lived like, I don't know, we could walk to our grandparents' house in like probably 2-3 minutes when we were kids, ride our bikes there in 30 seconds. And we spent a lot of time at our grandparents' house because of that. But Tanner like really bonded well with my grandpa. And for whatever reason, man, I just wasn't super into the mechanic thing. Like I really liked the cars and I liked sitting in them and listening to them and riding around in them with you guys and stuff. But like as soon as the hood went up, I was like, I think I'm good. And it felt like work to me. And I was like, well, I don't really want to do this. Like grandma and mom have snacks inside and like there's AC in there. So I'm gonna go do that. But I really think that I missed out on, number one, learning a bunch of stuff from Papa and probably from you too. But I also just miss like the hangs and the being able to chat and, you know, just all of that stuff. So I think that that's one of the biggest things that I feel like I missed out on. And I would definitely go back and relive some of those if I could. So really excited for the next time we get to hang in your shop, dude. Alrighty. Started that one pretty freaking pretty funny with the Alani thing and got a little deep. But yeah, awesome questions, man. Love you to death. We're going to take a little sip of our gay Alani before our next segment. All right. The next one we've got is from my pops. He was crushing it at his golf tournament today. He took second in their horse race, I think, and just got done with this other tournament out at the Boise Ranch. And he just lives the most awesome life to me because he's a teacher and absolutely loves golfing. And like every time I FaceTime this guy during the summer, he's out golfing and he answers like, hey, what's up, dude? And he's got like one of our family friends in the cart with him or he's playing some tournament. And while it is frustrating at times, and it does get so frustrating talking about what some dude who I've never met before did on the 16th hole today, I absolutely just love the joy that my dad lives with, like enjoying what he does as a teacher and then having 3 months to just play golf and fuck around with his buddies. In some ways, I'm very envious of it. So yeah, anyway, my dad was at a golf tournament today and literally got these questions in like as I was sitting down to do the episode. So really glad they made them in. Okay, so my dad asked, before your brother and then with your brother once he was born, we would go to Morrison Park in Boise and play in the fountains in the river. Why do you talk about these trips so much when you talk about your childhood? Yeah, this is one of the coolest things ever. And they actually took out this giant ass fountain at Morrison Park that my dad's talking about in Boise. And whoever the city planners are that did that, I'm sure you have your reasons, but I am a little salty about it. It was this fountain that sprayed like, it must have been 6 or 7 stories in the air. And then it had these like, this overflow that would create like these little waterfalls on the side. When me and my brother were kids, my dad would take us there and like, it was just felt so awesome. Like the fountain was giant and that was super cool. And there was all the mist coming off of it. And then we'd like run under the little waterfall things. And it was just such a cool little vibe. And, yeah, I think that it just always felt special. Like every time that it was like, hey, do we want to go to Ann Morrison? It just felt like super cool every single time. And looking back on it now, I'm not sure why it had such an imprint on me as a kid or like why when I think of my childhood, that's like one of the very first memories that come up. But looking back on it now, I really think that it was like one of the first times that I really learned to like appreciate the small things. And I don't think for me now, like for me then, I definitely wasn't like, oh yeah, this is one of the small things and I should always say yes and I should go. Like I was just genuinely stoked. But at the end of the day, like looking back on it now, I just think that it was like one of those little pattern breaks where it wasn't super far out of town. It wasn't a big trip. It wasn't extravagant, but it was just time that we could go like screw around on our bikes and run through the fountain and just like hang out and have like a good time. And I really am just grateful that I get to have those as part of my memories. Cause I think about being a dad and I've talked to my pops about this. over coffee a few times that like, I think about all the things that he did as a dad that to me were just part of growing up. And the fact that he would go out of his way and like take the time to run down to the park with us and like go hang out for an hour or 2 hours or however long we'd go and just like watch us screw around in this giant fountain. Being an adult now with adult responsibilities and knowing that like every night that you get home, it's like there are chores that are waiting and things to be done. And there's always like something quote unquote productive that you could be doing with your time. The fact that he was willing to like set aside all of that and be like, nope, get in the truck, boys. Like, we're going to go do this thing. It's something that I hope to be able to emulate and then also like create for my kids too, because, you know, I don't know for my dad if that was something where like he knew how important that would be to us, or that he knew that when I was 27, I'd be like, man, that was just like the coolest parts was like going to this park. So I hope that like, I don't think that I will be able to know which things that I'll do in the future that will like make that kind of impact on my kids. But I would really like when I do have kids to be able to just be selfless in the way to be like, you know what, man, we're going to set aside whatever the to-do list is and set aside whatever the things are and just like go do something just because we're going to spend quality time together, or just because it makes these kids happy and it's fun watching them run around. Because I don't think you can pick which ones are going to leave the biggest memories or the biggest imprints. But I just look at that now and I'm like, man, I'm so glad that I have that as a memory in my childhood. I don't know why it was so imprinting, although it was fun. But man, still every time I drive by that place, like I'll go run over there and, you know, whether I'm running or rafting the river or whatever, I'll still go to like the new fountain that they have and go run through it and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, just really, really stoked that that was part of the thing. And I don't know why it made such an imprint, but I'm really glad that it did. The next one, kind of another small moment thing. It says, when you learned that the sunset was yours to enjoy any time as an adult, looking back to what that meant to you as a child, how does that impact how you view your days and or how the days end? This seems like a very wordy question at the end of a long golf tournament about what do sunsets mean to you, and how did finding them special as a kid impact that? But regardless, we'll try to do our best to answer this one. Number one, I think that sunsets are underrated. I say it ad nauseum to all of the friends that are around me long enough that I think that when you just see a sunset and it's like, oh, that's pretty. And then you're just on about your day, or you don't even notice it. And you're just like, oh man, it's dark now. If every day the sky went from blue straight to black, and that was just the transition from day to night, and then one day the sky turned orange and yellow and had these purple clouds and red, and there's like these streaks across the sky, and like the whole sky looks like it was just like on fire and like painted by God, everybody would lose their fucking minds. It would be all over the news. It'd be the only thing that everyone's talking about. But I think since we get a new one every night and it's just this thing that recurs over and over again, just like, oh yeah, that's the sunset. Oh, what time does the sun go down? Whatever. And I just think that is the most ridiculous thing to take for granted, because it's like one of the most beautiful things we get to see, and it happens every day. So that's my quick soapbox on sunsets. Who knows if that was impacted by how much I enjoyed them as a kid. But yeah, just to start there, sunsets are super underrated. But I think that this was another one that Dad, give a ton of credit to you. We had a covered patio that faced west in the house that I grew up on, and we had one of those little like red Fisher Price swings that had like the little yellow rope that came down, and then you could like put somebody in it and then like, swing back and forth or whatever. And since we faced the sunset, I remember that my dad would go out there with us, and we had this like tiny little boom box, and he would like burn CDs off of FrostWire or LimeWire or whatever, and play. I think that we played a lot of Creed, which typical white boy in Idaho growing up. Shout out to Creed. And I remember specifically this one night, like he was playing higher and was like pushing either me or my little brother on the swing, and he was like, yeah, man. He's like, this sunset is yours. Like every sunset is yours. I don't really know exactly what he meant by that, but I just remember for me, like it really sat with me that like, oh man, this is like this cool thing that like I just get every day. Like, this is freaking awesome. And I think that when I think back towards that memory, it was just like felt so loving. It felt so like special and just kind of like, in my brain, like this movie-esque, picturesque thing. And yeah, it was really cool to me. So I think that that's another one of those small moments where, maybe as a kid, when you don't have a lot to compare it against, it just is the coolest moment ever. But looking back at it now, that's another one of those things where like, man, I hope that as a dad, I can find what those little things are to like, create excitement and create that feeling of love and just like that really great feeling for my kids too. So yeah, I don't know, man. The fact that we go out there and like watch the sunset and swing and do all of that, that probably has something to do with my idea now that sunsets are like wildly underappreciated by the general mass. But I think that that's one that I'm definitely going to carry on to my kids too, is I would love to have some kind of backyard that's easy to see the sunset from. And I get caught all the time sending pictures to people that I care about of the sunset and being like, damn, dude, this is a good one. Go look at it. So yeah, man, sunsets are rad. Alrighty. Next one. Even though you were exceptional at sports, that sounds gross for me to say. As your father, I made it a point to remind you that you could experience life without pursuing scholarships, etc. Knowing that, how did it cause you to think about living a good life with or without sports? This is a good question. I remember even before junior high, you telling me that like, you don't have to do this. You don't have to play in high school. I remember specifically, I don't know why, my dad telling me about how every hit once you get to like the high school level in football is like the equivalent to a car crash and all of these things. And so I was like pretty faced with the idea early about like, do I want to do this or not? And, yeah, I don't know, man. I think that it really started settling with me in college once I had accomplished a lot of the things in sports that I wanted to. But I don't think that I don't know how much it settled in like during junior high school and all of that. In a lot of ways, I grew up believing that sports were a way to create a better future for myself. I always wanted to get a college scholarship from the time I was in like junior high because I wanted to graduate without student loan debt. I thought it'd be fun to, play ball in college and all that stuff. But I was like, this thing is going to take me out of my hometown. It's going to provide for me and it's going to provide opportunity. And I think that the other thing that looking back, I was leaning on sports a lot more for than I thought at the time was like for my identity. So yeah, while life could be good, like with or without pursuing scholarships or sports or whatever, I think that I did find a lot of like identity in sports when I was growing up because like it or not, being like the quarterback and being, playing sports and wrestling and baseball, like all of the things, it was really helpful for me socially because I always had friends. Every time that there was a new football team, there was like another group of 80 dudes that I could be friends with. And most of my best friends growing up were from our little guy football team. And yeah, I just had this like baked in social group. And I think by nature of playing quarterback and being raised to be a leader and all of these things, it just like created this gravitational thing where I never really had to like be what I felt like was an outcast. Like I felt like I was always baked in with this group of friends. I always had guys I could count on. And when you are working together in a team environment and like kind of like going through the struggle together, it's a very good breeding ground for friendships. So, I think that while I didn't long-term believe that I had to play sports and I didn't believe I was going to be a professional athlete or anything like that, I do think that I really leaned heavily on my identity as an athlete and my identity as being good at football or whatever in high school, to like kind of take care of the social stuff for me. That being said, I did really enjoy having friends that weren't athletes and all of that kind of stuff. But it wasn't until after I graduated and ironically was on that trip in Switzerland that I realized like, dude, if you don't just go make friends and like get good at introducing yourself to people, you're not in these rooms anymore where just like 100 people are given to you. And it's like, yeah, pick which ones you're going to be friends with. Like either way, you're going to be around these guys for the next 4 years. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm rambling a little bit, but I think that it was really helpful for me when I was in college to believe that I didn't have to be an athlete and that I was actually excited to be done playing football and that life wasn't just sports. So I think that it came really helpful that I had kind of like that seed planted and that underlying idea that like your identity doesn't have to be sports. I think that was really helpful for me in college as I was getting ready to be done playing. However, in high school and junior high and a lot of that, I do think that I was solely focused on getting a scholarship because I thought that it could take me places and it provided me with like one goal to really set as my North Star. And then I also think that I leaned on it at some times that I knew and sometimes that I didn't really heavily to kind of support my social life for better or for worse. So I'm very grateful that I had that in the back of my head. But yeah, I don't necessarily think that I took the pressure off of myself to get a scholarship or that I was like lackadaisical about sports growing up. I think I was very much had the weight of the world's on my shoulders, regardless. Alrighty. Okay, last one from my dad. What are the questions that you have for a parent who has gone from being indoctrinated into multiple religious views and then developed a critical view of living life through thought, reason, and values? Has it been helpful or challenging having that influence on you? Yeah, a little bit of background just to make this question make sense. My pops grew up in a religious family, got baptized, I believe, and had a couple different religions and all this stuff. And then left a lot of that, asked a bunch of questions, got into religion and philosophy and all sorts of different stuff that, from what I imagine, creates a little bit more of a comprehensive worldview now. Has it been helpful or challenging having that influence on you? I think that growing up, it was very helpful because it allowed me to ask questions that I don't think a lot of people around me asked. It was really, I thought that it was cool because it really like spurred my curiosity. And I specifically remember my dad telling me, he's like, pay attention in history class that a lot of times they'll tell you names, dates, and places of things that happened. But a lot of times they won't dig super deep into the why things happened, like what the motive was behind certain wars or certain political movements or those sorts of things. And I think that it just genuinely made me curious. Like I was willing to ask lots of questions and get hyper fixated on certain events and like really kind of dig in ways where, I think it just spurred my curiosity. So I thought that was really cool. That being said, though, there is a bit of an asterisk right there because while I didn't have a super firm like religious background or footing, I think, well, actually, I know that it left a gaping wide hole for like a giant existential crisis when I was 12. I really respect that both of my parents decided that religion was never like a no-no or it wasn't a thing that was to be like shamed, and that they encouraged us to just make our own decision. They're like, you want to go to church? Great. You want to go with your friends? Great. You want to go by yourself? Great. You want us to take you? Also great. But like make your own decision. We're not going to force anything on you. Those two things being combined, when I was 12 or 13, my little question asking self asked too many questions and got to the point where I was like, what happens after we die? And where I think religion comes into play there is clearly it's like, well, you go to heaven or whatever the belief is, there's an answer for that question. And for me, I had none. And since I didn't particularly have a strong belief in God or in gods or anything that was going to happen afterwards, the idea of like eternal nothingness really just bitch slapped me. And I remember the night that it happened and just like freaking out and like asking my dad to come upstairs and being like, dude, what the hell is going on here? Like, what happens after we die? Which I can only imagine as a dad has got to be like, oh shit, I guess today's the day for that. Like, I don't think as a parent, they really warn you for when you're going to get hit with one of these conversations. But I remember just freaking out and being like, man, if there's no God and if there's none of the heaven and anything like that all these religions are talking about, and we just die, like, I don't remember anything from before I was here, and that was a really long time. And if we die and then it's just that forever, then like, what the fuck is going on here? And really, if I start talking about it too much on this podcast, I might get there too. But I was like, yeah, man, we're just like a flash in the pan, and it's not enough time, and it's scary. And like, I don't want to just be nothing forever. I want to feel. I don't even care if I'm in pain. Like I want to be here. And I think that the perspective that my dad had going into this, to kind of like loop back to his question, was really helpful in this moment, because at that time he taught me that the idea of carpe diem, which is seize the day. And what he told me is, he's like, yeah, dude, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen after this. I don't believe that most of the people in organized religion for sure know what's going to happen after this, although they have their beliefs, and it's kind of out of our control. But the one thing that we can control is, like, regardless of what came before this or afterwards, we have right now. We have the present, and we have the ability to make that as awesome as humanly possible. So this idea of seize the day is like, regardless of what happens next or before or whatever, like, all that we've got is right now. So let's just focus on making this awesome. And I didn't know how to describe them at the time, but for a handful of months, like even up to a year or two, I remember having like pretty frequent panic attacks where this like impending doom of eternal nothingness would slap me in the face, and I'd get like real freaked out, and I'd never had anxiety really before and all this stuff. So I was just like kind of tripping on it. But eventually I got through it and really just leaned into that idea of like, dude, if I can just do the best that I can to make this life awesome and treat this as if it's an opportunity worth a description of heaven, and enjoy this like it's the only thing that I've got, whatever's supposed to happen to me after this will happen, whatever. Like, if I can just be the best that I can be, I think I can look at myself in the mirror and say that it was like a life well lived. So I adopted that belief for a really long time. And I think that, Dad, the time that you spent in religion, and then the time that you spent thinking about everything else that existed around it and against it and all of the things, was really helpful in that moment. And it's been cool to be able to ping ideas off of you in the entire spectrum of spirituality, not spirituality, and like just the whole thing. So yeah, very cool perspective to have. That being said, though, there have been a handful of times, and that's one of them, where I do envy people who grew up with a strong sense of spirituality. And the reason for that is because I think that it provides, I think that growing up with a strong sense of spirituality provides a real like calming sense of trust and feeling like you've got somebody in your corner. And the big questions of what happens when I die, or what's going to happen with this thing, or how can I make sure I'm doing the right thing? Like, just having the guardrails, or like having the support of, well, God's got me. God's got a plan. If I do the right things, God's got a place for me. I think that that's just like, it could have provided me in so many ways, in sports and business and relationships and everything. I think that having that trust and having that like backing would have been helpful in a lot of moments, to just be like, man, like, I don't have to worry about this. And it's something that I'm leaning a bit more into now, is just like trusting that it's not all on me, and that there is something that's on my side. And I've talked in previous podcasts like this one about how I am trying to lean more into spirituality and belief in God, and trying to figure out what that means for me. So it's been very helpful to have somebody who's kind of like ran the whole gamut on that stuff, and very much looking forward to talking about all the other phases after this one. Alrighty. All right, Pops. Those were some heavy ones. Very good for after a golf tournament. I don't think my brain works most days after being out in the sun that long, and there's a lot of thought in those ones. So, yeah, thank you for those. I would, like I said, I mean, obviously we've covered both my mom's and my dad's at this point, but I've just got to say, like, for being in a spot now where I hope to be a parent someday, and I hope to do the very best job that I can of raising my kids, I'm like so fascinated lately with the fact that like we don't get a guidebook to this stuff, right? Like, there are resources, and you can read psychology and conditioning and all these like different ways to quote unquote not screw up your kid. But I just think that it's so fascinating to be able to like have conversations with my own parents now and be like, okay, now that I know that you were just winging it and that you weren't some superhero that always knew what to do and knew whether it was right or wrong and all these things, like, how'd you figure out the good stuff? Like, how did you create these moments where you gave the right advice at the right time? Or how did you create these like small memories that now are like the things that 20 years later I'm still remembering when I think of my childhood? And like, how do you navigate all this? I think it's going to be a really cool conversation to continue to have with them, is like, as a person, not even just as my parent, but like as a person, how did you navigate this freaking minefield, and what were the wins that you had, and what are some of the pitfalls, and how can I get better from that? So yeah, love you guys to death. Thank you for asking the questions, and I hope I did a good job of answering them. Alrighty. Next two are from my grandmas. Talked about my papa earlier, and I wish that he could have submitted some of those, but yeah, as far as immediate family goes, it's pretty small. We've never been the real giant Thanksgiving and Christmas and that kind of family, and only have just a couple cousins, or I could count them on one hand, that I know, and some aunts and uncles that I'm just absolutely blessed to have, but very small family. And for the sake of not making this a 5-hour podcast, I decided to just go with the immediate ones for this one. But that being said, grandmas are just the coolest of all time. And my two grandmas asked me a couple questions, so we're going to get into them. Starting with Grandma Debi. She is my dad's mom and is just like the most radiant bundle of joy of all time, and doesn't seem to age. She looks the exact same that she did when I was a kid, and is just like the sweetest soul of all time. Anyways, she asked me the question, when you were playing football in college, what were your thoughts when it was all over? My grandma made the effort to come to quite a few of my football games, and it was really cool to see her there. So it's a cool question, but honestly, my thoughts when it was all over was like, thank goodness. I was so ready to be done with college football. I had a lot of fun in high school. I had some fun in college, but for whatever reason, yeah, me and college football just did not click super well. I loved hanging with the guys. I loved hanging with most of my coaches, and really enjoyed like the atmosphere of all of it. But to be honest, like I enjoyed the off season more than I enjoyed playing a lot of times. And I enjoyed like practice and summer, like 7-on-7, and just really enjoyed like all the auxiliary things about football, but like actually like playing, I was pretty sick of it, to be honest, by the time I was done. I was super beat up, needed another shoulder surgery, which I probably should have gotten. Did not get along with my position coach, who was also my head coach, pretty much the whole time I played there. And yeah, I was just ready to be done. I do remember as a freshman, I wasn't sure I was going to stick it out all 4 years. And I think that my personal goal of wanting to graduate without debt really pulled me through a lot of really hard times. But we had this tradition at Rocky called the Senior Burn. At the Senior Burn, it was before the last home game of each season, and all the seniors would bring something that meant something to them, to this bonfire that the whole team would have, and they would like burn it. They talk about the time there that they had playing, and kind of give some advice to like the younger guys and just like reflect on their time there. And I remember that as a freshman, I stood there freezing my ass off and listening to some of the guys talking about how sticking it out was the best thing that they ever did, and how most of the people that they came in with aren't graduating with them, and just, yeah, talking about the value that the experience had for them. And then there were a handful of guys that went up there and they talked about how like they just didn't know what was going to happen after football was over. And those were the ones that really made an impact on me, because I was like, man, like we're playing at an NAI school where like odds are none of us are going to the league out of this. Like, yeah, I was just like, how could you not know up until the last game of your career that like you still don't know what's going to happen after this? Like, buddy, you got a week or two to figure this out. And that just made such an impression on me, because I was like, I don't want to be that person. Like, I want to be done with football before football is done with me. And I think that my dad, kind of back to the question that he asked earlier about sports, is like, I think that he kind of ingrained that in me, is like, dude, sports is part of your life, but it's not your whole life. And yeah, by the time I was done playing football, I was like, man, I'm just so glad that it's over. I was sick of the anxiety that I constantly lived with trying to perform well. I was sick of like just the schedule, and I was constantly in a, battle for a starting position. And it was just 4 years of being just riddled with anxiety. And as a not super anxious person, that was pretty hard on me. So yeah, I did enjoy my time there. I was bummed out that the off season, like hanging with the guys and the summers and all that kind of stuff was over. And yeah, I was kind of bummed not to be part of the hang anymore. But that being said, like actually playing football, I was like, all right, we are good to go and we're out of here. So thankful for all the memories, but I certainly don't miss it. And I do still have dreams. I had one this freaking week of like having a practice and not having my helmet and like panicking and not knowing where to go, or like being late to a game or something, or like forgetting my shoulder pads. And those dreams would always start right around fall camp or right around spring ball. And they would last like all of the season and then sometimes past that. And I can't believe that I still have them, but regardless, was very, very ready to be done. Next question was, what's a fun memory that you have of the two of us? So many. We were on the phone talking a little bit about these questions before this, and one of the ones that came to mind to me is when me and my little brother were in daycare. I don't remember if it was once or twice a week, but my grandma would come and pick us up and she'd take us to Burger King, and we would just be stoked because we'd go and eat whatever burgers, and we'd get to like play in the like jungle gym and just have a freaking blast. So that was like one of the first things I remember, just always being stoked. Yeah, it was so fun. A lot of my really great memories too come from, my grandma had this house in Meridian, Idaho, and we'd go there for like family dinners and like holidays and all that kind of stuff. And my grandma's an amazing cook, but it was always like the little hangs that I loved the most. And my cousin lived there for a little while too, who I looked up to a ton and was kind of like an older brother to me in a way. But I remember like I really enjoyed playing, like she had this above ground pool that they built a deck around, and we'd go play in the pool. We'd play catch in the backyard. My grandma would like sit there. She'd make us food. She used to dye me and my cousin's hair. We'd like do streaks in our hair. And my grandma was a hairdresser for a really long time. So she'd put that rubber cap on our heads, and we thought that it was so freaking cool. And we'd like be playing music. My grandma would grab this little cap and she'd like pluck our hair out of it and like, do like the dye or whatever. But yeah, it was just always such a fun hang. Like, I feel like my grandma's always finding a way to have fun with something. She's always laughing. She's always got the biggest smile on her face. But the one that I probably think about the most, like to this day, I think about it multiple times a week, is my grandma would come over when we were in junior high and high school, and before my little brother and I had cars, and would help us like get ready in the morning and then take us to school. And I remember that there was one day that we were driving, and it was one of those situations where like you and somebody else had a red light next to each other, and our lane continued straight, but the other lane had to like merge into ours. And as a driver, you're in one of those situations where it's like either I gun it and I like overtake this person, end up in their lane, or I kind of like slow play it, get in behind them or whatever. And I didn't think anything of it. My grandma would always let me play like cool music on the way to school. So we're like bumping 50 Cent or whatever we were playing. And the light turns green and she just guns it. And I was like, oh shit. And this person next to us is like also hauling ass, and we're like both redlining it into the lane that we were in. So technically, I guess we were in the right, but they like end up getting like all the way almost door to door with us and had to slam on their brakes. And my grandma's just like barely reacts to it. I was like, Grandma, what are you doing? She's like, you know what? I'm sick of these people. I'm sick of everybody thinking that like they just have a right to get in my lane. This is my lane. Like, I don't have to let them over. And I think about every time I get stopped at a red light and I'm door to door with somebody and I'm like, have to make that thing. I'm like, God, I'm praying to God right now that this person doesn't have one of my grandma's bones in their body where they're going to freaking goose it off of this light and we're almost going to crash into each other because of a little lane dispute. But yeah, man. Yeah. So many fun memories all the time. my grandma's one of like the sweetest people of all time. It's just such a ray of light. So yeah, everything from drinking Moscato at your house and making Tom and Jerry's and all of the holiday parties that we had, messing around in your backyard, just so much fun always. So yeah, very, very blessed to have you as my grandma. Okay, the next one. What is your most thought about memory of your life so far? This is the only one that I didn't make a note of as I was prepping for this podcast. And I think it's because I didn't have an answer to this. So this is really putting me on the spot right now. The most thought of memory in my life so far. I think that my memory works in chapters a lot. So I think that I've got a memory for each chapter that I think of. And when somebody asks me about my childhood or about junior high or about, high school or about football or whatever, like I think that I've always kind of got one for each of those. Maybe we'll just speed run those real quick. I don't know what my most thought of memory is so far, but as a kid, I think of the Ann Morrison and playing at the swing, which we talked about earlier. I think of the first time that I ran off and was like hanging with some older kids that lived right next to my grandparents actually, and didn't tell my parents I was leaving, and I got spanked for the first time. I think about being a little bit older and playing in this like drainage ditch that we had next to our house that was like turned into this big park, and we would climb the trees. So I remember climbing the trees. A little older than that, I remember playing at the we built all these like dirt bike jumps right across the street from my grandparents' house, and that was super fun. Junior high, I think about fall camp for whatever reason and playing football. And I also think about the walk that I had to the bus stop. There's this girl that I had a crush on that was like my bus buddy. And I just remember being like so sweaty and nervous all the time walking to the bus stop, and then being sweaty on the bus sitting next to this girl, and then being sweaty off after the bus because I was just like so nervous the whole time. So yeah, being sweaty on the bus in junior high. The end of junior high, I think about yearbook day because I was transferring, and all of my friends were like writing in the yearbook like, "We're never talking to you again. Watch your knees next season." Blah blah blah. And I literally lost all of my friends besides like two that I grew up with. Early high school, I think about my buddy Derek Johnson, who him and I were transfers our very first year of high school. Neither one of us really had friends outside of each other than like people that we'd see at practice. And I remember one day he didn't come to school, and I was like the first day that he was absent. I was like, "Dude, where are you?" And he's like, "I'm sick." I'm like, "Well, now I have no one to hang out with at break. I have to walk around like a loser by myself, and like just gonna eat lunch in my car by myself now. Like, what are you doing, dude?" And then, yeah, remember in high school, I think about like towards my senior year, my senior music teacher teaching me how to play the guitar for my senior project after my grandpa passed. It was his guitar, and that felt really special to me. And being like super awkward and nervous carrying my guitar through the hallway. So my buddy DJ, I'd pay him like $3 a time to like carry my guitar for me, so I didn't feel like a goofy band kid. In hindsight, it probably would have just looked cool if I was walking with a guitar. But when I think about high school football, I think about like 3 games in particular, but most of the time I think about throwing 5 picks in the state championship and getting our absolute asses beat to a team that we beat before, which is a bit of a bummer. But yeah, college, I think about being down bad my freshman year. I think about my sophomore year, like the movie nights that we'd have on Wednesdays at my buddy Max Gray's house, and just like we always found a way to have fun with like every day of the week had a theme, and it was just so much fun. Yeah, junior and senior year kind of went by as a blur. That was during COVID. So I guess eating pizza rolls and playing Rocket League with my roommate, Luke, one of my best friends. And, yeah, throughout business the last couple of years, I think about like the day that I decided to, or the day that I was in, I think I was in Germany when I realized that I wasn't going to work for somebody anymore. I think about being really down bad during those drives along the way of deciding I was actually going to make the leap. I think about the time that I was in like getting into business. I had just landed in Europe and was taking a little vacation. And I remember I had the lowest month. I made like $3,000 top line revenue that month and had to pay half of it to my assistant and had to be in Europe for like 3 weeks after that and like didn't have a ton of savings. So I just remember feeling like the oh shit moment and feeling super broke there. I remember about a year after that, the call that I got from one of the people that I used to work with, offering me a job in med sales, and long story short, saying that I wasn't going to take it, even though it was a great financial opportunity. I think about the first time that I lost my GM after we did really well for a long time and had to kind of start from zero on a lot of things, both personally and professionally. I think about the second time that happened and was really down bad. And that's when I decided I was going to move. And remember a couple of the trips that we had along the ways too. Me and my buddy Ollie went to New York and that was super fun. A couple of the vlog trips with Rowan have been really great. But yeah, I don't know, Grandma. Maybe I'll get back to you on this one in person when I think about it a little bit more. But I think that I've got these memories that like seem to define like big chapters of my life, whether it was like a thing that I was uncomfortable with or a thing that I was like really excited about or whatever. But it seems like each one of those kind of has like a thumbnail or like a profile picture for each of those chapters. And, yeah, that might not have been great podcasting to listen to, but I think those are some of the ones along the way that just like kind of seemed like little dots along the timeline. So I'll get back to you on that one, but that's a really good question. I should ask my guest that one too. What's the most thought of memory in your life so far? I'm curious. I'm very excited for the aha moment when I realized what it was. All right. Last one, Grandma Carol. These ones, I knew they were going to be super thoughtful, and I purposely didn't give her a ton of time to answer these because she is one of the most thoughtful and like insightful people that I know. She's also got this look where like you'll ask her a question and she's got like this little half smile where like, you know, she's thinking about it and she's got an answer, but she's being tactful in the way that she's going to tell you what the answer is and help you out. And I just, every time I go to my grandma's house when I'm in town, we just chat for hours, and they're some of my favorite conversations. So intentionally, I didn't want to spin her out for a couple of days asking these questions because I know that she'd be spinning her wheels on this one quite a bit. So that being said, I asked her about an hour and a half before this episode, and these are the ones that she came up with. She said, Papa and Tanner had a lot of similar interests in mechanical things and cars. Did you ever feel left out by them? This kind of touches on what I was talking about earlier with feeling like I missed out on these hangs from the question my brother asked. But I would say, no, I didn't ever feel left out. It always felt like a very open invite, and I just knew it was just kind of the hang. Like it was just what was going on, and it was like really fun. But seriously, I wish that I would have felt more interested in it, because as a man, I wish that I knew more mechanically. As a grandson and as a brother, I wish that I could have that time back. But yeah, I just was never super interested in it. Like I'd be down to mess around in the garage a little bit and like ride bikes and have fun or whatever. But yeah, as soon as it was time to like start tinkering under the hood or working on stuff, I was like, it felt like work to me. It felt like I didn't understand what was going on. It was hot, smelled like gasoline, which I actually do love the smell of old car gas now. But yeah, I don't think that I felt left out because like really just intrinsically, I just like wasn't super excited about doing any of it. And I wish that wasn't the case looking back on it now. But I was like grandma and mom have snacks inside. There's AC. Like we'll watch some TV, we'll hang out, we'll chat. So one of the cornier things looking back at it, but I just, just intrinsically, I never was super into it. So wish I could take it back, but it was always always felt like an open invite and never felt left out for sure. Next one, she said, when Tanner, my little brother, did his stand-up comic act at daycare, did you consider saying that you didn't know him? Which is absolutely hilarious because this is one, like, I think we were talking at Christmas this year about this memory, and I had like, somehow it had entirely scrubbed my memory that at the end of each summer, we had this like giant talent show where kids would do whatever the hell they were going to do. But like all of the kids at daycare were there, all of the family and friends, like this place was packed. And my little brother, who, God, he must have been like 5 at the time, maybe 6. He got up there. He got like the wild hair one day. He was like, yep, I'm going to do the talent show and I'm going to do stand-up comedy. And I was just like, I remember him walking around the house and like, he would tell my parents his jokes and all that stuff. And I don't even know where he got them because like it was super early internet. I can't imagine that he knew how to use it when he was 5. Like seriously, no idea where he got these. But he went up there and just murdered. Like everybody was rolling laughing. He did a great job. I think he only told a couple jokes, but I just remember being like so nervous. And I think at the time, like super embarrassed that he was doing it. And then he just brought the house down, which is the most hilarious thing of all time. And now he's like, never has to be the center of attention. He wasn't like the big boisterous personality who had to suck up all the air in a room, was just like this fun kid. And he was like, yeah, I'm just going to do a comedy show. And I still, to this day, don't think that there was any phase in my life where I would have been down to do that. And he just got up there and freaking crushed it. So yeah, I think before the set, maybe I would have considered saying I didn't know him. But just looking back, I'm so proud of him that he did that. And that is just so freaking hilarious that that's part of his little kid lore. So yeah, I can't believe how funny he was. I wish there was a video of that set. If one of you guys has one, I have to watch that. Absolutely loved it. Okay, next one. You spent a lot of time with us when you were young. I mentioned before that their house was just down the road. Did the tension in the family dynamics ever affect the way that you saw us? No. Growing up, my parents fought a decent amount and they got divorced and all the stuff, but no, not at all. I think I'll backtrack on that. Yes, it did affect how I saw you guys, but it was very much in a positive light. Being in a situation where, yeah, we were just down the road and we never really lived super far, even when my parents moved. What I really appreciated about you and Grandpa were that you guys created such a safe space for my little brother. And I think for me, like in a lot of ways, I always kind of felt like I was riding solo on things and I didn't feel always super at home lots of places until kind of like later in high school. And I kind of started to settle in then. But but I do remember just watching like how much like peace and like love Tanner felt going there. And that always just felt so good to me. And because like as his big brother, I knew that that's something that I couldn't really give him. I knew that it's something that I didn't really felt like I had. But watching how you and my grandpa just like showed up for him and would show up for us too. Like I always knew that you guys were there, and I really appreciated that because it was a time where we really needed kind of like a third party and just like a place to go. And I think that you guys really provided that. I think that I was very hesitant to take the help or the, maybe like the safe place regardless of where I was at. And so I think that it really maybe benefited Tanner when I try to remember it more than it benefited me. But, having loving grandparents is just the biggest blessing of all time. I wish that grandparents and dogs outlived all of us. But, I wouldn't say that it, I would say that it affected the way that I saw you guys because I just had so much more respect, and so much more gratitude for the ability that you guys had to create a safe space. And I think that, for all of the families that grandparents are in the picture and step up to help with kids, whether it's in the early days or not, I've had so many friends that grew up only getting to see their grandparents once a year during the holidays. And I feel so blessed that me and Tanner got to just like also be raised by you guys. And I know for him, it was just like, it was like a real haven that I think that he really, really needed. So, me then was very impressed, but me now, like also just as a human who is a little bit older now, like just want to thank you guys for giving that to him. Cause, it's really impressive to look at now that we're not being parented and not being raised by you guys to just see the way that you showed up for us. So yeah, I would say that the tension in the family dynamics did affect the way that I saw you guys, but affected it very, very positively. All right. And that is the last one. There's a couple in here that my family submitted that I'm really glad that they did, because I'm going to take the chance to like have conversations with them when I go back home and over the phone and stuff like that for it. And this was really cool. The question that I texted them, and this is something that I think that might be a cool conversation starter for anybody who's listened this far, to text their parents or grandparents or siblings, is, I asked them, I was like, it's a bit morbid, but I asked them, I was like, okay, I just moved to Austin. Let's say that for whatever reason, I never come home and like something happens to me. What would be a conversation that you wish we had? What would be a thing that you wish you knew about me, or like a question that you wish you would have asked, that if you weren't able to, you'd feel like you missed out on it? And again, I hit some of my family members with this like a couple hours before the podcast. It is a hard question to answer, because you do have to put yourself through the like uncomfortability of asking somebody like, if I were to die, what would, blah, blah, blah. That being said, I was trying to think about like, how do I ask my family members a setup question that will have them think like deeply enough to be like, to ask the kind of questions to me for this episode that I wanted. And I didn't want it to just be like surface level stuff. I told them it could be funny, it could be memory based, it could be deeper, but I was just like, let's use this as an opportunity. And, I know that I was able to cover a decent amount in this, and I hope that it's really helpful and that it spurs more conversations with my family. But I just think that internally, like, this podcast forces me to do a lot of things that just like do in general make my life better. And this has been one of them. So maybe this is a question or like a thought exercise that I'll do with my family in the future. And it originally came about because me and my mom were kind of talking about a similar thing during that road trip to Texas. But I just think that this is a really cool one. So feel free to steal it. Maybe I'll add it in the show description if it's something that you want to copy and paste in a text message to your people. But, really cool thing to be able to have a platform where I can text a couple of my family members and be like, hey, I'm going to answer some of your questions on the podcast. Shoot me whatever you want. And then whatever feels like it's a little too heavy or, something that would be better as a conversation between us, we'll just keep those between us. So very grateful for this platform, grateful for all you guys for creating it for me, and grateful to have family members who are willing to do this. So that being said, we're done with the Q&A. Thank you guys for listening to that. Just reflecting on all of this, it'll be 10 years next year since I've lived with my family. And not to say this since I lived at home, but just since I've even lived in the same state. And I think I really needed that when I first left, and I am getting to the point where I think I really want to be closer to them now that I've been gone for as long as I have. And I think the family is a really important thing. I went back to Boise for a month and lived with my little brother, and just loved the ability to drop in and say hi to my mom, or be between stuff and go say hi to my dad before he went golfing, or go golfing with my dad, make dinner with my little brother. It's just like the little things like that I was like, man, it's cool being able to catch up with them here and there on FaceTime. And like, I don't feel like we've lost touch by any means, but those little things are just like, they just mean so much to me. And I think all of the tension that I had about living at home that got in the way of those things is stuff that's out of the way now. And so it's getting harder and harder for me to look at myself and be like, why are we missing out on these years with family? And the takeaway that I wanted to leave from this episode, outside of me just yapping about my family life and stuff, is I've heard this thing a handful of times, and I am the absolute biggest loser when it comes to quote attribution. But the idea is that we take the amount of time that we think we have with our family, and we measure it in years. So if we have a family member who's 50, we might say, well, they're pretty healthy. I expect them to live till 80. I've still got 30 years left with my dad. However, I think that a lot of times that gives us this piece that like, oh, we've got 30 years. We've got plenty of time. But in my case, for the last 10 years, reliably, I'll make it home. Let's call it an average of 3 times a year. My parents being divorced, I see them half and half. And I might be home for, let's call it 10 days for round numbers. So that means that of those 10 days, max, I'll see each one 5 times. And I'll probably see friends, so let's call it 2 times each. So if that's the case, and I make it 3 times a year. I've got 6 visits with each of my parents per year. Times 30. It's like I've got 180 times that I get to see my dad for the rest of my life. It's not 30 years. It's that many visits. And you can play those numbers out however they look for you. If you get 1 a year, if you get 1 every other year, if it's sporadic, if you haven't talked to your family in a while, it just it really hit me as something that I needed to pay attention to, because it makes the visits that I have with them a lot more intentional. Instead of just popping over to dinner and being on my phone and being half distracted about some work that I have and all of that. Not to say that I'm perfect, but I really try to set that stuff aside, because I'm this is one of those 180. I've got 179 when I see him on Tuesday. And that to me has just been a really helpful lens to look at things as okay, I don't have 5 to 10 years left with my grandma or 20 years left with my grandma. If I see him 1 time per visit, I've got 5, 10, 20 times left with my grandma is all. So I have to make sure that this counts. And that for me has just been one of the most important takeaways living far away from my family is do not measure in the amount of years that you have, measure in the amount of occurrences that you're actually going to spend time with that person, and treat each of those occurrences accordingly. And I think that this episode is just a tribute to all my family and to that idea is, gosh, I hope to be in a spot soon where I get to move back, and that there will be lots of those opportunities to, instead of I can't ask for more years, but I can ask for more times, more occurrences seeing somebody. And this is just a tribute to them for all of the conversations that, they've been willing to have with me, and the quality time that we've gotten to spend together during the times that I do get to come home every year. For the times that they've made the effort to come up to Montana and watch me play football, or, go to Texas and help me move, or, just all of the effort that it actually takes to see your people when you don't live in the same place. These conversations mean a lot to me, and this is the thing that I hope to give to the world. And I think it'll be a really cool time capsule to be able to go back and look at. But these conversations mean more to me than anything. I get a chance to interview some really important people to me, some great friends, some people I look up to, some people who I think have a lot to contribute to the world. And at the end of the day, I just really want to make sure that I build as good and better relationships with the people who are in my corner and who always have been, and not get too caught up in all of the things that exist outside of family and outside of the things that really matter. So, I think it'd be really cool to do some family episodes and do some one-on-one podcasts, whether those ever see the light of day or not. But I think that this was a really good start. So had a ton of fun asking these questions to my family, had a ton of fun getting some of the questions that they sent back. And I'm really looking forward to hearing what they think about these, and then hopefully using this as a Kickstarter to some really cool conversations with the fam after this. But that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I know that it was a lot of story time of just me, and it's hard for me to look at myself and always believe that that's valuable. But I remind myself that when some of my favorite people to listen to, or some of the people that I look up to, do the same thing, it's always a pleasure for me to feel like I get kind of an inside look into their world. So I hope that's what this has been for you. If not, you're probably not listening up until this point, and we lost it anyways. And maybe the next one will be for you. But for those of you who stuck around, thank you so much for listening. This is one of the most important things in the world to me. And the fact that I got to do questions with the most important people in the world to me just made this one really special. So next episode coming at you will probably be from Austin, Texas, or a remote setup somewhere in between. So thank you guys for sticking along. I've got so many exciting things coming for the journey. I'm splitting time between Austin, Texas and Billings, Montana right now. I've got some people that I love very dearly in Billings that I just can't say bye to and really love coming up for. And have the business, have the podcast, and just like absolutely love the community up here. So bouncing back and forth between here and Austin. I'm really looking forward to the guests that we're going to see in Austin, and just being able to like get this message out to more people. I think that platforming people who have chased their calling and have done like the thing that they're supposed to with their life is a very important mission. And I hope that along the way, we're able to encourage a lot of people to do the same thing. So thank you for sticking with me through all of the ups and downs and great episodes and good episodes along the way. And yeah, can't wait to see you in the next one. Thanks for being here. And as always, be where your feet are. Love you.